The soft hum of the evening crickets filled the air as Elena leaned against the wooden railing of her porch, watching the sky bleed into shades of amber and violet. The summer heat lingered, clinging to her skin like an unwanted memory. She exhaled, sipping from a glass of chilled white wine, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Her daughter, Sophia, had left for a business trip early that morning, her goodbye kiss still warm on Elena's cheek. And now, the house felt cavernous, empty in a way that gnawed at her bones. She wasn't alone, though. Inside, setting down his duffel bag in the guest room, was Julian, Sophia's husband. He had arrived a few hours ago, unannounced, his usual confident smile faltering when he told her Sophia had asked him to stay over while their house underwent unexpected repairs. Julian was charming, effortlessly so. From the moment Sophia had introduced him 3 years ago, Elena had noticed his magnetic pull. He was younger, full of life, and carried himself with an easy grace that had always made her feel seen. She shook her head, pushing the thought away. He was her son-in-law. This was dangerous. That night, after a quiet dinner, Julian offered to help clean up. Elena watched him as he rolled up his sleeves, the sinews in his forearms flexing slightly as he scrubbed a plate. "You don't have to do that," she said, drying the dishes beside him. "I don't mind," he replied, flashing a boyish grin. "Besides, Sophia would kill me if she found out I didn't help." At the mention of her daughter's name, guilt stabbed at Elena's chest. But before she could dwell on it, Julian suddenly turned, his eyes locking onto hers in a way that made the air between them shift. "You okay?" he asked softly. Elena hesitated. "Of course. Just tired." "Liar," he teased. But there was something deeper behind his gaze, an understanding, an unspoken acknowledgement of something neither of them had dared to voice. She tore her eyes away. "Good night, Julian." As she climbed the stairs to her room, her heart pounded in a way that had nothing to do with exhaustion. The next few days were torture. Elena found herself hyper-aware of Julian's presence. The way he moved through the house, the way his cologne lingered in the hallway long after he passed, the way his voice sent a shiver down her spine. She tried to distance herself, to avoid unnecessary conversation, but it was impossible. Julian was warm, attentive, always finding ways to close the gap between them. On the third evening, as she sat outside on the porch, fanning herself against the relentless heat, Julian appeared with 2 glasses of wine. "I figured you could use a drink," he said, handing her one. "Thanks," she murmured, wary. They sat in silence for a while, the cicadas filling the quiet. "I think I understand now," Julian finally said. Elena turned to him, brows furrowed. "Understand what?" "The loneliness." Her breath hitched. He continued, swirling the wine in his glass. "Sophia's gone a lot. Always traveling, always busy. I get it, it's her job, and I'm proud of her. But sometimes," he trailed off, glancing at Elena, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes what?" she found herself asking. "Sometimes I feel invisible." Elena exhaled sharply, his words hitting too close to home. She had felt that same way for years, ever since her husband had left her for another woman. It was the kind of loneliness that settled deep into your bones, making you crave warmth in places you shouldn't. "This is dangerous," she whispered, staring straight ahead. Julian didn't move closer, but he didn't move away either. "I know," he admitted. Neither of them spoke after that. They just sat there, the tension between them crackling like a summer storm on the horizon. The inevitable happened on the night before Julian was supposed to leave. Elena had been lying in bed, restless, her body on fire with thoughts she shouldn't be having. And then, a soft knock on her door. She knew who it was before she even opened it. "Julian," she breathed, staring at him standing in the dim hallway. "Tell me to go," he said, his voice hoarse. Elena opened her mouth, but no words came out, because she didn't want him to go. The moment she stepped back, he was inside, the door clicking shut behind him. Their kiss was desperate, hungry, the culmination of every stolen glance, every unspoken word. His hands roamed her body, fingers tracing over skin that hadn't been worshipped in years. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against her lips. But she didn't, and just like that, they crossed a line they could never erase. The next morning, the weight of what they had done was unbearable. Julian left early, not saying much, just a lingering look that held too much emotion. Elena spent the day drowning in guilt, her mind spinning with the consequences of their actions. What had they done? How could they face Sophia after this? That evening, as she sat alone in the living room, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Attached was a photo, a blurred but unmistakable image of her and Julian in bed. Her stomach dropped. Her hands shook as she scrolled further. More pictures. More proof. Then, another message. "Tell her before I do." Her breath came in ragged gasps as she stared at the screen. Someone had seen them. Someone knew. And now, her entire world was seconds away from shattering. She had no choice. She had to tell Sophia. When Sophia arrived home the next day, Elena felt like she was suffocating. She barely got through dinner, her daughter chatting away about work, oblivious to the hurricane brewing. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "Sophia, I need to talk to you." Sophia looked up, confused. "What is it, Mom?" Elena's hands trembled as she reached for Sophia's hand, but her daughter pulled back instinctively, sensing something was off. Elena's voice broke. She swallowed hard and tried again. "It's about Julian." At the mention of his name, Sophia stiffened. Before Elena could continue, Sophia's phone buzzed. She picked it up, her face draining of color as she stared at the screen. Elena didn't need to see it to know what it was. Sophia's head snapped up, her eyes brimming with betrayal. "Tell me this isn't real." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "I'm so sorry." A strangled sound escaped Sophia's throat. Half a sob, half a laugh of disbelief. "You slept with my husband?" Elena reached for her, but Sophia recoiled. "Don't touch me." "Sophia, please. I trusted you. I loved you. And you." Her voice cracked. "You disgust me." The front door slammed, leaving behind only silence. Elena collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. She had lost everything, and she had no one to blame but herself.